Seems like no matter what nowadays, boys, every time something don't work right away, I assume that Google has put the hammer down and that I can't get together with my two British friends and talk trash about whatever it is that we decided to talk about that particular day. And right before I hit the button, boys, I mean, once again, just like the Monday where, we thought that I thought that the chat was disabled in the, out in the whatever. I would say the chat was disabled in the chat because that's how I'm looking at him now. Philip Daniels here, RPR's here right now. More people will trickle in. That is a huge part of it, them talking. But this time I hit the start broadcast button and it didn't, it was like failed. Oh man, every time something like that happens, I'm just right away assume that Google is pulling a gab. And without ruining the first, I'm not going to destroy the first story, but how are you boys doing today? What's been going on in your life, Common Sense Guy?
Well, thanks for that. I've put out a video defending Kraut on his first video to the alt-right. And needless to say, I've managed to get somebody on the hook that just doesn't want to let the points go. So since about 10 o'clock my time to about 8 o'clock now, and yes, even now he's still going on about it, I've been bish-boshing with this bloke trying to talk about science, even though neither of us are scientists, and we're only talking about theories.
Can I ask, is this the person who made the response video to Kraut, to whom you responded? Is it that person, or is it just somebody else who sympathizes with that person?
No, that was even better. The actual person who I responded to, 10 minutes after I put up a 36-minute video, I was able to respond saying that my video was boring and needed extra editing, but yet only took 10 minutes to actually watch the video and didn't actually get any of the points. So that's that one.
You gotta love it when that happens. I've seen that happen to British. I've seen it happens to me, where you put up something and it's not even been up long enough, and boom, they've said something about it, and you couldn't have even bloody seen it. That's a bummer.
Well, I think
it was funny because
it seems to be in keeping with the style of that particular person, doesn't it? Because that person basically spent a lot of time trying to make out that, oh, well, I need to point out right from the start that Kraut and T is not very clever. He thinks he's intellectual, but he's definitely not. And his immediate response, obviously, to your criticizing him is, oh, well, this video could definitely do with more editing. And frankly, there is not much of value there anyway. That seems to be his approach to things, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, that's one of the things I actually put into the video was the fact that he states at the beginning of the video he's an absolute free speechist, apparently. But yet, Kraut and T can't make any comments on this theory whatsoever because he's not educated enough. Wow, that goes completely against your ideology then, doesn't it, mate?
One of the best things then, actually, was when he was asking, well, what is he hoping to achieve? How does he hope to win against the alt-right? And you sort of, what exactly is your argument? Because he seemed to be arguing, kind of saying, well, A, we are invincible, because, I mean, he wasn't saying we, but frankly, I think it's fair to assume that it means we. And secondly, you don't really want to take us on. That seemed to be what is implied in his message, even though he would no doubt never admit to that.
No, yeah, you're completely right. And the way that I approached that was like, if you take the basis of any crux of any argument and you destroy that crux of the argument using the table theory, if you take away the legs of the table will fall flat on its face. So if you take away the basis of the argument of the alt-right will collapse in general. The same as if it would do if it's Antifa or
you said that
whatever.
in the video. You actually used that. Yeah, I watched it.
I did indeed. But I did find his points in general were extremely funny. Extremely funny.
Man, I haven't seen the comments. I might have to go back and look. I won't defend or support you. The British has kind of shown me that. Even though we're mates and stuff, it's your video. You've made all your points. It's
Exactly.
like the British or I come in there and like, I don't know. It almost detracts from your points when you got your bro showing up going, yeah, right. You know, whatever.
So what it's 10 o'clock this morning now. You've had someone ding-donging at you, really. So this person is obviously not the person who made the video. But is
No.
this some kind of staunch alt-writer or just a
Well, he makes that common stance at the beginning. He says, "I'm not an alt-writer, but..."
You mind if I pull this up on screen, what we're talking about here?
No, of course, go on. Not a
All
problem.
right, so which video is it, sir?
The last video, literally, the Crown T defense. Coach Red Pill's self-destruction is the one.
So basically, yes, I am not an alt-righter, but yes, that's always a very good gambit, isn't it?
Yeah. Apparently, I was taking his points, which Coach Red Pill's points were that the fact that we don't use it as a scientific theory, we use it as a basis,
a metaphor
of.
Yes.
No. First of all, he states at the beginning of the video that he uses as a basis of a theory. We're drawing from it to make a theory, and then he goes on to say it's a turn of phrase, it's a metaphor. That's why I left it in the video.
It was an interesting one. That yes, you're right. Yes, first it's a basis of a theory, then it's a metaphor, and then it's a turn of phrase. So it
Exactly.
kind of it transmogrifies several times there, doesn't it? In whatever happens to fit his narrative for the time.
So this is the ding dong is with this guy, Coach Red Pill. I mean, he actually did comment on your video here.
He did indeed, but it wasn't too
really
bad with him.
Britisher, he got this guy. I don't know what to say to you, mate. I'm so proud of right now to be affiliated with you. He got the dude that he was doing this on. I have yet to do this to the guy that he is responding to, the guy that he's saying you're full of shit. He got him to comment.
Yvette Falarka has not yet commented on any of your videos.
You now get a priest level troll, sir. You are now a priest level troll.
No, the actual person yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, the actual person I've been ding dong with
the one. I mean, which one am I looking for? Where's the?
It's called Britbat or something like that. It's towards the bottom. That's the one, blue.
Oh, yeah. 25. Oh my gracious.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not going to go through this. This is like reading.
Fun. It's been fun.
At least give me the opening gambit. The I am not alt-right, but.
Let's do that. So it starts out, this guy says, I'm not all right, but Kraut's video series so far, along with your defense of it, completely misses the mark. As this video by an actual biologist explains, RK refers to reproductive strategies, and it's a continuum which varies between individual species within a class, between individuals within a species, etc. Oh my gracious, how much more do I have to read?
Oh, there's tons.
Oh, a lot.
There's tons just on.
Oh, then he keeps on going. So it's the RK. I mean, you'd have to watch this, man. This is all.
Have you watched the actual Crown T video in question, Ogre?
Yes, I've watched the whole nine. Watched not only that.
He makes a very powerful argument. It really takes some undoing that. And the idea that it basically would be within a species is. Yeah, it is somewhat ridiculous.
Somewhat ridiculous.
These people's retorts are basically, we're not trying to say that it's in the actual species, but it's in the psychology of the species, as in a bloke will go off and have sex with 3 or 4 different women, but then it will come back to saying instead of him being a K-type, which is a normal type for mammals, he'll be an R-type, as in he wants to reproduce as many times as possible.
Yes, because psychologically he would be deemed an R-type.
But which is completely wrong.
It's not a psychological condition.
There are no mammals that. Okay.
It is not a psychological condition. It is a definition, a biological definition.
Well,
exactly.
Therefore, it cannot. If you're a mammal like us, you can't be, because you can't lay tens of thousands of eggs.
Precisely. Yes.
It just can't happen. I don't know how else to say it.
As I say, it was basically pointed out by Crown T that quite a few people on YouTube were peddling this idea that there was such a thing as a psychological R-type or K-type. And he basically just completely tore them apart and said, look, I've spoken to this biologist. And at one point he even sort of says, doesn't he, oh, I'm very grateful for her putting me onto this particular book. And I'm not sure whether she lent it to him or he basically just pointed the book out to him.
She lent him textbooks from her own textbooks from the 1980s.
And if you remember, in his supposed debunking video of Kraut and Tea, it was said that, oh, he claims to have read 2 or 3 books. Did you catch that part?
I did indeed. It's the same thing as what this person that your screen showing at the moment. He links at what he says is a biologist, which isn't a biologist. He's actually research partner or what do you call it?
And this
junior
person,
researcher from neurology is what the person he uses.
More my ire gets up a little bit. This person is trying to say that they're trying to compare. You can't make a K-type. You can't make an R-type a K-type by saying that, well, a man can have 200 children, you know, Mormons, seductive, whatever. They can.
Genghis Khan,
but you're still not talking on the level of a sea turtle that comes on land and lays 800 eggs. How about
at a time?
The common frog that will lay 25,000 eggs?
Or
how
an
about
arachnid?
The salmon that will lay 2 million eggs? You know what I mean? It's just
well, I mean, at heart, really, what we are looking at is some people trying to find a theory upon which they can, strictly speaking, base their claims of innate superiority over other people.
Yes.
That's really what we're looking at.
Yeah.
They are basically trying to couch it into some pseudo-scientific terms, whereby, R-type, K-type. What they really mean is superior and inferior. And whether that be, in this case, biologically or psychologically superior or inferior, or just morally superior and inferior, strictly speaking, that is what we are actually, what they are driving at. This is what we're observing, isn't it?
Indeed. I mean, he points to the person that we're talking about in the comment section.
I didn't expect you to like the song that's coming to mind when I think about all this procreation, Britisher. That everyone else has had more sex than me. The rabbit.
That video, ladies and gentlemen, you know, this was a video that the ogre sent me a link to on Twitter, and it's it's a rabbit singing "Everyone is having more sex than me." And frankly, I laughed out loud. It really was very, very funny. So yes, I can see how you could. How this could come to mind. Yes.
I'm not gonna ruin this by because it would screw the stream of it that has some kind of copyright on it. I tried to play it now, but I will find out in my other channel way if I can actually play that. And if I can, maybe to Friday on well, that's your channel. I don't know. I know you're. Oh, by the way, we got a couple teasers tonight, and the first one is Friday. Look for us on the Britishers channel. There'll be some other people there, so we will definitely need RPR. We'll need you. We'll need the Warlock there. Don't know if we'll need many more moderators at that point. We may need 1 or 2. It just depends. Depends upon the night. But make sure you come by and see what's going on Friday. We'll have some other people there, and some of those people will be very entertaining. Trust me, it has been so far. It has been every time. And also, if you get tired of hearing me and my voice, again, show up Friday because I'm the 3rd moderator, and so I'm trying to, you know, keep some kind of civility.
We will still be hoping that the ogre makes some sort of contribution other than moderating.
Well, no, I'll do my best. I will. I'll do my best. In fact, my best will be more. It'll be plenty. It'll be plenty. Sometimes it works out better that way for other people because, I mean, I'm a bulldog. It's not like I don't know it. In fact, being the bulldog I am, looking at this conversation, we covered a little bit of it. Yeah, you struck some people's funny bone or whatever you want to call it here.
I think you touched a nerve. I think that's perhaps the way to express it. That you seem to have kind of struck a blow for truth because you've succeeded in annoying some people.
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. It's weird because this gentleman himself, he even says, "Oh, we're going around in circles all the time," and it's just like, yes, because you're not grasping the point of my argument. And then he comes back and he says, "Oh, you're just not understanding the argument because of your own arrogance." And it's like, what? No. I'm trying to explain to you in simple English what my argument is your arrogance that is not actually taking in my argument at all, and you're sideswiping it, saying, no, that's not true, but this is. And it's just like, okay, at least I'm engaging you in your argument. You're just sideswiping mine. Fair enough. Whatever. Just people you have to deal with.
How would you feel if people could come into your country with impunity? I am curious about this. And by the looks of it, it's 27 minutes in.
Quite a lot of people have been able to do that.
But yeah, they're starting to be
long time.
Oh, so you like that? That's good?
No, I don't. Personally, I don't. I don't like the fact that anybody from the EU, if they have an EU passport, can stroll in straight in without any sort of formal security checks. As long as you've got a European passport, you can come straight through.
Well, I think one of the problems that, in a way, was created with the European Union, and in all fairness, Britain was one of the main culprits in this, is the constant expansion of the European Union.
Yeah.
And Britain was definitely one of the driving forces in seeking to expand the European Union, constantly including more and more countries in it. And one of the problems with that was that if you look at the origins of the European Union, at the beginning they were, the Western European nations, and they were all really fairly wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually one took on some poor countries, but because they were fairly small and one really just took them one or two at a time, one was capable over 10, 20 years to absorb them. So when Europe basically took in Greece and Spain and Portugal, it wasn't as if some huge block was suddenly added to the European Union, which would sink Britain, France, Germany, the Netherlands, the actual rich core, so to speak. But once one started bringing in en masse these Eastern European countries, something changed significantly, because these countries are significantly poorer than the West. And the latest two that have been added, which would be Bulgaria and Romania, are, some of the poorest countries in Europe, full stop. So, of course, there is very strong immigratory pressures from those countries, and quite a brain drain that basically everybody who can is getting out of those countries and is trying to head to the West. And that does cause a big problem, that you then suddenly have hundreds of thousands of people piling into countries. And the challenge of trying to maintain the infrastructure is quite a big one. I mean,
well, and also immigration is pretty, I don't know how else to say this. Let me put it this way. Immigration is okay as long as there's no welfare state. If there's a welfare state in any way, if there's an entitlement state, if you can get on the dole, on the handout, on the government train in any way, it's unfathomable to consider unchecked immigration, because that means anybody that's and look, don't make it humanitarian, especially with the United States, because we give away more than you all combined. There is no doubt about that. It's unquestionable. We give away more grain, corn, assistance than everybody else on earth combined. We help people in countries who swear they want to kill us. I don't know why, too, by the way. So as long as you have this welfare state, you can't have unchecked immigration. I just want y'all to hear Paul the Rhino Ryan.
Before you do, can I just counter on British's point? I think one of the main points the British makes is the fact that because we've added so many countries in, yes, I do agree with him on the instance that the fact that the immigration was becoming unchecked. But as soon as we started taking in immigrants from the Middle East for various reasons, not all of them were to do with wars and things like that, but for various reasons, as well as migrants from Africa as well. As soon as they got into Europe, they went for 3 or 4 different countries. They went for Germany, they went for France, they went for Sweden, and they went for the UK. And as Oka did touch on it, it is to do with the welfare state, so to speak. they went straight for those countries. And even when they went up to places like Norway and places like that, it's too cold, we don't like it, and we're going to move. Now, if you're actually running away from wars, you're not going to be saying that, are you? You're going to be, I'm happy, I'm safe.
Yes, if I heard that too, that there were some Scandinavians, some refugees into Scandinavian countries who were leaving because it was too cold, and you just thought, well, you cannot really be much of a refugee then. But there are various factors in that. Yes, the welfare state definitely is a driving factor. There's no doubt about that. But there are also other factors. One of the factors, for example, is if you have established communities of that nationality in a particular country. So there's more than likely very few Iraqis in Portugal, but there will more than likely be an Iraqi community of some sort in Britain. So, and this might be just a historically existent community. And therefore, if you're an Iraqi and you're heading into Europe, you will more than likely head where there is some people of your ilk, so to speak.
No, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
So that is one attraction. The other attraction, of course, and that is where particularly Britain is cursed, is language. So if you are a Syrian, and you speak even just a little bit of some other language, what is that language going to be? It is hardly going to be Norwegian, German, Serbo-Croatian, or Spanish. It's most likely going to be English. You know, you're going to head for Britain.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, because that is one of the pressure factors also with those immigrants that are coming across the Mediterranean, you know, that they're drowning in their thousands, that are coming from Libya, the Black Africans.
Yeah.
If you think of it, what languages will they speak? They will speak French and English.
Yep.
I've got an echo coming from somewhere. So if they speak those languages, then they will try and utilize those languages as best they can. So they will head to those countries. So the welfare state, admittedly, definitely is a factor, but there will also be other factors. And language is one factor, and established communities is another factor.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. Yeah. But my point wasn't necessarily just the welfare state. It was, I wasn't able to finish, but my point was that it was to do with the free movement, as in there's no borders, there's no checks, there's no anything. So the countries that are now being taken to court, which are Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland, I believe, that are now being taken to court from the European Union, are now actually going to court against them because they didn't take in their rightful numbers.
Show up tomorrow on the British stream, and man, you two British people can have at it on other stuff.
Sorry,
but stay a good discourse until I appreciate it, but I did let y'all ramble on there for a minute. Very good. I'm sure it was entertaining to all, me included. But I am going to play what
Go ahead.
Paul Ryan says here, and because listen, keep in mind what you're saying. I want the discourse after and I would like to, yeah. So hang in there. I've got to do one with these daggone British sons of bitches.
Yeah. So first, let me say, President Obama was wrong to do it in the first place because he overstepped his constitutional bounds. We, the president and Congress, take an oath to support and defend the Constitution. So President Trump was right in his decision. He made the right call. I'm also encouraged by the fact that he gave us time to work out a consensus, to find a compromise, because these kids don't, for the most part, don't know any other home than the United States. So I think the president was right to give us the time we need to find that compromise. Where does that compromise exist? That's what we're going to spend the next months figuring out, where that compromise is. But I think it's totally reasonable and appropriate that when you take a look at the DACA dilemma, this is a dilemma that in large part stems from the fact that it is a symptom of a larger problem. And the larger problem is that we do not have control of our borders. And so it's only reasonable and fitting that we also address the root cause of the problem, which is borders that are not sufficiently controlled, while we address this very real and very human problem that's right in front of us.
All right, boys, I appreciate y'all letting me have that. But let me start this out, then I'm going to cut y'all loose.
Can I just ask one question before you start?
Yes, but then I got to get two ideas.
So we know what the actual problem is. because this, when you're talking about dreamers, you are talking about people who were children when they came into the United States of America.
Okay. And I understand both of these things have to do with borders, but I want to, yes, I'll tell you anything you want to ask as soon as, let me just make this statement, Britisher, please.
Go ahead.
Everyone. It won't be long. You have Paul Ryan here being extremely slick in his delivery. And he's trying, listen, I would be okay with this on a much higher level than I am right now, which is I'm not okay with it. But I would at least, my heartstrings would be pulled a little more if the common sense guy could come here with his 3-year-old child and live here and work here for a little while, and they're ready to, you know, his work visa's over, whatever, there's no more work and he's got to go back to England, and they're like, oh, but the child has been here, and then well, and if somebody from Scandinavia and somebody from France, as you already mentioned, these people be speaking French and English, that was so profound to me. I don't know if y'all know the impact it had on what I had to say, because yes, the ones being helped in Europe right now will inevitably end up speaking French or English. A few of the morons will speak German, but soon enough that will be Syrian or whatever they want to speak, because it ain't gonna be German much longer. So you haven't taken these two things. One, no. What do we, these people, are we now only judging on the economic side of the, you know, socioeconomic side of it? Is that it? Because apparently if you're poor, or more to the point, if you come from south of the border and you have a child and you've come here illegally, in a lot of cases, these people walked across the border. It would be like now let's say some English folks came here on vacation and just stayed. They are doing nothing for me emotionally. Trying to paint Trump as a monster or anybody else, or trying to paint Obama as a good guy. No, the only way Obama would have been a good guy is if he said that applied to Canadians. They're also right across the board. It never has, and it doesn't. And it never has. And don't think there aren't Canadian people that have been here but then had to leave with children. Does it happen as much as the Mexican border? No, but not as many Venezuelans and Mexicans, and everybody from south of that border is pouring over illegally as do from Canada. You know, I have no control over who is breaking the law most. So I'll say, as far, yes, and then I want to cut you boys loose. But yes, we need a wall. We need a wall. And the equivalent, as Trump said through his whole thing. Everybody thinks that he's never said he was going to build a wall border to border, sea to border. Never said that. He said a lot of places are natural. A lot of places will be able to have surveillance. A lot of places they need a wall. We need to make this presence known. It already has been known because ICE is exporting them now. Sanctuary cities are ending now. It's that, oh my Lord, am I racist? And I'm going to let y'all loose now. That was what I wanted to say. Paul Ryan is a rhino, a Republican in name only. He is not a Republican. He's not a libertarian. He's not someone that believes in small government. He's not somebody that believes that diplomacy ends at the water's edge. That's what I believe. And when I say that, of course, if France blows the bugle, well, then America would hear it. If England blew the bugle, of course, America would hear it. I don't know other than that. There's not too many things ringing a bell. If someone else blows the bugle, I don't know. If it's not, I won't even lie. In my heart, if it's not affecting one of those two countries, maybe that's it. Canada, I don't know. Take them over. So there you go. There's my 2 cents. There is a big difference between needing a wall and just wanting DACA ended. I'm glad to see Trump using it for a lever. I still don't think he's playing 4D chess or whatever the hell they've been talking about, all the thing. I just think he's a good businessman. And at this point, he is using this thing for a lever. And eventually he's going to come out and say, well, if you want to have the dreamers here, well, then you will give me X amount of money and I will do my best to make it up through trade with Mexico. And mark my words, I believe at the end of 4 years, there will be some paperwork that will show that has been the, because if you remember, he said he'll make Mexico pay for it. Everybody's like, how? He's like, I'll show you. I'm still on the very glass is half full side of it looks like this is it too. Because listen, okay, Lord, I said 3 times I was cut y'all loose. If they end the DACA thing, if they end that and all those people have to go back, do you know how much money that was going back to Mexico that will stop at that point? Mexicans are great people in that they remember their family. They come here, they work, they live in the slums of a city. They don't care where they live. They will live in any situation, which God bless them for. I'm not saying it's bad, but they will live anywhere. They come from worse, I think is how they look at it. And then so there's 10 of them in a house. They all got a job, maybe minimum wage, but they pull it all together. They make way more than they need and send the rest back to grandma in Guatemala or Honduras or Mexico somewhere. Yeah, the DACA thing. That's a lot of money. Ain't going back to Mexico. There you go, boys. That really is the end for me. I could keep going, but it would just be a lot of hot air about how I, want America to stand strong in the borders. And the more I say, the more I will look like a racist.
See, if you don't mind me going first, British, yeah?
Go ahead.
For me, you get certain people from certain ideologies that go, oh, we should be open, we should be worldwide. In theory, yeah. In practice, it doesn't work because economy is not worldwide in the sense of you have the USA economy of Mexican, Guatemala, UK, Irish. You have all different economies that all merge into one. But if you take one of the economies away, you mess up the rest of them. And it's the same for immigration. If you keep on putting one lot of people into one section of the world, so to speak, like all the Mexicans or whatever into America, then you're going to have a serious problem because then Mexico's economy is going to tank, which affects the rest of the world. And because that's what gone down, you're then going to have America's economy tank because then you're not going to have enough jobs to be able to do with people. More people are going to be on welfare, so the welfare state then builds up. And that's just in one place. You can imagine that for the rest of the world in general as well. That's the reason why you need borders, not to keep people out, but to make sure immigration is legislated. Make sure that you're getting not the right people in as in race, but the right people in as working. That's the difference. I think that's where Ogre's going on that.
Well, I am kind of amazed at this whole issue because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ogre, but when the president kind of takes his oath of office, he swears to protect the Constitution of the United States. And I think we can take it as read that that means all the laws of the United States. And what kind of strikes me as strange here is that, unlike the British-European situation, where what we were talking about before with Eastern European immigration, I mean, all of that was entirely lawful. It was entirely legal. It has kind of led to Brexit, so it has led to dissatisfaction within the country regarding it, but it was within the law. Whereas what seems to be going on in America seems to be counter to the law. And the president seems to have said, well, it doesn't really matter. We still need to be nice to the children who entered illegally. Now, as much as it is a nice sentiment, it is a strange way to go, to kind of have the president of a country effectively set aside the law. Because I think Ryan said there that, strictly speaking, he had exceeded his powers, because I cannot really see how he could lawfully set aside the actual law of the country, which is what he did in that case. Perhaps there is something I'm not understanding. I'm not sure, but that is what kind of just baffled me right
No, that's exactly what happened. First they said, the first thing they said was that we're not going to prosecute, or Obama said he put out an executive order, said that his in fact it wasn't an executive order. He just said that, listen, my Department of Justice is not going to pursue cases of these, I can't remember what they call them then, DACA children, they're not going to pursue it. Then after that, he said, well, now we want them to be able to have an indefinite visa and citizenship, path to citizenship. And no, both of those things are bloody illegal. I'll say it again. When they let Ugandan and English and French and Herzegovinian and everything else, everybody else, Russian and everybody else that wants to come in, when it goes that way, the only thing I could say was that I still wouldn't want it. But the only thing I could say then was that, okay, they are being humanitarian. And I guess, the United States is, and I will say this, boys, I know y'all are from Great Britain, and I love Great Britain. I love my country. But is our country so great? It's not that great. It's all here. We have to work too. We have responsibilities too. A lot of times people get to our countries and they realize that there's not gold on the streets of San Francisco like they told them in the gold rush. That's not the way it goes. I'm sorry. I know it's a ramble, but right. This is killing me because I don't want to see. There are folks need help, and there are some folks that need help. And they should get it, especially if they're citizens of a country and, their father and their grandfather is paid into it. I mean, I know people like this. And themselves, they need help. Give it to them. But now when we start talking about that, since that's okay, everyone that can make it to this soil. I mean, just like the idea that, with all due respect, if you come to this country in any way that you can conceive, and you're not a citizen, you do not have rights in the United States of America. May sound bad, may sound terrible.
You have some rights, but you don't. No, you still have human rights.
Yeah, you have human rights, but you don't have the right to trial. You don't have the rights of an American citizen. You don't have even the freedom of speech. You could be charged by your own country for something that you said on our soil. You see what I mean? You don't have the rights that you do here. So just because someone makes it across the Rio Grande doesn't mean that suddenly now.
I understand exactly what you mean, but I think that if you are a legal alien, you do have rights.
None under our Constitution, sir. I'm sorry.
I would.
None under our Constitution, sir. I'm sorry. You can do whatever you want. You can grab your pearls and faint on whatever couch is closest, Britisher. But the fact of the matter is, if you're in our country and you're not a citizen, you should remember what happened to that American boy in Singapore, that moron that wanted to vandalize some cars, and they caned him. They turned his rear end to ground beef, and I was cheering it. Just like when you come here, you don't assume. When you go to another, if I was in your country, Britisher, I would not be one of these idiots in front of a beefeater or whatever, the Queen's Guard with the big bear hat, whatever they call that, the big hat, the big poofy hat. I would not be one of these idiots in front of his face. You don't be on your best behavior if in a foreign country. Represent your country. I don't know what else to say, but I don't. If you're on our soil, Britt, with all due respect, you don't. Just like if I'm on yours, I have no rights. I have forfeited my right to everything.
I think what we're looking at is differences in interpretation here, because I think you are looking at the Constitution, whereas I would say in law you will still have rights.
You still can't be tortured. There's still the Geneva Convention. There is rights even in our country, yes, that you'll have. In other words, no one can beat you or rape you or take away your property or any of these things. No. But if you're here and you're a foreigner and you rob someone and a police officer sees you, you're pretty much guilty. In fact, in my mind, the idea of you're guilty until proven innocent is gone. All of that is gone. You don't have the same rights that I have as an American citizen. You don't have the right to.
I cannot agree with you on that.
Well, that's just the way it is. That is the way it is. Otherwise, we have to have DACA. Has to be okay. I mean, you can disagree all you want. You're not even an American. I'm just telling you the way it is. We do not have anything in our legislature, in our legal system. We have no provisions for anything outside of prisoners of war. And so if you're here in our country and you commit a crime, you're in violation of, you're a war criminal. and they can treat you however they want. As far as you don't have the right, you would have the right to tribunal, but that's all anyway, Brett. I'm not. And look, it can be a debate if you want it to be, but here's the simple fact: I don't have any rights when I come to your country. I have the right to represent my country as a gentleman should, and to leave your lovely land just like I found it. But if I punch somebody in the yes.
If you, for instance, were to come to the country on a holiday, you would have to get a visa, and obviously vice versa. While you're on holiday with that visa, your rights are still afforded to you by that country because you're representing your country.
Not by that country; they're afforded to you by your country.
That's what.
In other words, like I said, if you're here,
that's what I just said.
Yes, and so you would have if you get in any trouble here, you would have somebody at your consulate would come forward. The idea that you can get a lawyer. Yes, people would come forward. The ACLU, you'd have all kinds of nutcases trying to defend you because you're a foreigner. But the fact of the matter is, you don't have any rights on our soil, just like I don't have any rights on yours. I know that's look. I want it to sound harsh, and the reason why, Britt and Common Sense Guy, is because don't use this emotional lever on me, because these kids were brung here by criminals. The idea is this: if you are intoxicated and behind the wheel of a car, and anything happens on the road, it doesn't matter, and you're involved in it. In other words, somebody pulls out in front of you and you blindside them in the side, but they ran a red light. It's still your fault because you're intoxicated. If you weren't on the road, even though they run the red light, they wouldn't have been struck by you. You see what I mean? This is the same situation when we think about someone in a foreign country. Whatever it is that you think you have, Mexico, unless we afford it to everyone, including the British, the French, everyone, unless we afford it to everyone, which I don't think we should afford it to anybody, you can't just expect it. Does that make sense, boys? You can't just come over here and say, I have a child, therefore, ooh, I've been here illegally 10 years, and now you got to let me live here. That you don't, and I'll keep going back.
Well, I don't know.
I hope I haven't offended anybody, but no one has rights on American soil but Americans, gentlemen. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. For what you were saying before, in the UK, I'm not sure what it's like in the US, obviously, but if you were to move into a derelict building for over 8 years, you then claim squatters' rights on that building, meaning the building then belongs to you.
Technically, that is nowhere in the United States. There are people that do stuff similar to that, and like Detroit, you can find some stuff on YouTube actually that just type in "squatters won't get out" Detroit YouTube, and you'll see some crazy stuff.
No, I mean, but this is actually supported by law, where the fact is that you actually have squatters' rights. Where if you live in a place and can prove that you've lived there, yeah. If you've proved that you can live there,
but here we don't have any laws like that on any books. What happens is we have some mayors that say you can do it, even though it's against the law. Just like we had Obama say DACA's okay, even though it's against the law. We do have some mayors here that say it's okay, but
see, going back onto what you said about DACA, and I'm going to say Prince Obama because he can do what he wants. Apparently, he gets away with everything. Well, apparently he can. He can break the constitutional right and absolutely have nothing that afforded to him. In fact, even have people that come out that are politicians that say, "No, we broke the constitution, but everything's absolutely fine." I thought that was almost a treasonal effect, especially if you were swore to protect an oath.
Well, that's what particularly confused me.
Yeah.
The fact that he is, strictly speaking, the person whose job it is to uphold the law. So he is, in a way, the top policeman. And this is the equivalent of a policeman just going, well, I'm standing here and across the road someone is robbing a bank, but I'm not really that interested today. And
yes, it's not in my jurisdiction.
This is what you're actually paid for. This is the reason you took this job. I mean, in this, so basically, it wasn't that the law was changed, which in that case I would understand. So if he would have had a majority in Congress and whatever, and he would have simply changed the law so that these children would now be lawfully here, that I would understand. But the fact that one was really just turning a blind eye to it.
So you would understand, Brett, I hate to press you, but I got to press you on this point. So them singling out a specific racial
well, no, it doesn't mean
profiled group of people to say they're okay, but everybody else can get bent.
It would
So in
not
other words,
mean.
and believe me, when this is happening, I got to check into this, but I bet there's been some English people that have said, hey, if you got the Dreamers, my child was here too for these years and we'd like to stay and we can't.
Yes, but no, I'm not talking. Yes, you're kind of jumping on me here. I'm not saying that I agree with it.
I'm very emotional about this thing.
Yes, I'm not saying that I agree with it. I am saying that I would understand it, at least from a technical perspective, that if the President of the United States has the law changed so that
it's changed.
So that people could lawfully stay here. So basically, if they change everything that they need to change, as opposed to just saying,
then it's changed.
Well, we're just not going to bother. That to me seems odd, coming from the very person who is sworn to uphold the law.
Well, Barack swore he wouldn't do all these things. He talked down on executive orders. I give it to Trump that this isn't being done by executive order. I hope everyone knows that. Everybody talks bad about Trump, but so far, man, it's only been a few months. So I'm gonna, but even to give credit to Britt, and I have been emotional, and I am. Look, I'm not sorry if I jumped on anybody, but I get vehement about some things too, boys. Not often, but this thing I do, because I had some questions I wanted to ask you, Britisher, but I'm going to hold back because when it comes down to it, if we shouldn't have to choose between human rights and the right for our land to remain our land, we shouldn't have to choose between that. We really shouldn't. That's why we have in the past put limitations on people coming in. We haven't, I mean, this idea, they do it to us here, British, common sense guy. Oh, but we're a land of immigrants. Hey, we're not. We're a land of conquerors. So if you want to go by what we're a land of, it looks like they're trying to do manifest destiny all over again to me. So if you want to go back to what we are and what we're made of, yeah, we're made of people that come over here and take away from what was once someone else's. That's just the facts, dude. That's the way it rolls here.
Well, I mean, a huge amount of people are immigrants, even immigrants into the already conquered the United States of America.
Well, I mean, immigrants, but Brett, we were immigrants, but from England. You see what I mean? Yes, but immigrants, we weren't. You had the French got together with the Indians, man. They wreaked havoc, mate. The French and Indian War was hell. And the French, for some reason, they got along really good too, brother. They really did. The French got up with the Algonquins, and they come across northern Michigan. They come across New York, all over Ontario, Canada, and Canada in general, and North Dakota, South Dakota, all this whole huge, what they called the Algonquins. They came into that area, and they just got along. They loved, the French turned out, loved scalping some bitches too. They really did. They got into that kind of thing. I mean, they got into the whole deal. Anyway, we are a land of conquest, and what's happening now is a very social conquest. If it continues on, eventually, I mean, we were warned by our forefathers here, British, that said if we're not careful, we'll wake up foreigners on the continent. Our forefathers died to conquer.
How much, dare I ask this, because this will no doubt be, this will be on the extremely not politically correct level.
Well, let me smoke some pot. Go ahead.
How much of this is due to the feminine influence on politics? Because this is very much an issue where one is appealing to the heart. Whereas perhaps the male, how should we say, the male inclination is perhaps more to defend one's territory. Whereas the female inclination seems to be more to give shelter to the poor people coming from the south who need help. Do you understand what I mean?
To be mothering.
Oh, yeah.
You mean to be mothering?
This is definitely common sense guy's territory. I'll let him answer that question.
Thank you very much. Cheers. I would say there's definitely an instance in that, especially obviously from people like Barack Obama and places like that, who are definitely on the left-hand side, they've got so used to pandering to that sort of aspect to go, yeah, we need to do this for the feminists, we need to do this for this and that. And it kind of changes their ideology and their political outlook to the point where I think the pandering itself has broken the Constitution in Barack Obama's case by literally doing DACA just because he wanted to. And it completely broke the whole of what he stood for. And yet people will sit there and go, oh, Trump's really bad. But yet he hasn't broke anything to do with the Constitution. People say, oh, he's been talking to Russia. Where's the evidence? Where's the proof on that? You've got evidence and proof that Barack Obama's done this. Why isn't he in prison? I don't understand that aspect of it, because he can't pardon himself for that, can he?
Not when he's out of office.
No, let's not. And just for you lot, let me let you. Most Americans, regardless of what the media would like you to think, just like when Bill Clinton, my parents were diehard Republicans. When Bill Clinton was going through his thing, they were not for that. I mean, let's not think about that. I mean, you can look at it in another way, common sense. We don't really, it's not, we don't want presidents to go to jail. They don't.
Can I ask a question then?
Yes, sir.
If you can't hold the person to account that is supposed to hold accountable to the country,
you can't hold them to account. You can shame them. You can shame their legacy.
But that's not holding them to account, though.
Well, it's like the British. Go ahead, but let me, very quickly. It's like the British said the other day about if you execute. He didn't even agree with me, but he was like, if you execute every dictator that's evil, well, there's no incentive. You should pension them off and let them go off to the island of Alba, if you will. And so, see what I mean? All I'm saying in common sense and carry on is that we don't really go for jailing. We don't put our former leaders in jail, no matter what they did, but we can. Like Nixon, even I think Nixon is a buffoon. Go ahead, sir.
Well, it's just because, you know, I couldn't help but intervene when you said, you know, you really don't want to put your presidents in jail. Does that also count for former secretaries of state? Yes.
Yep. For me, I cheered when the whole block her up thing, but yeah, this would be the best thing, Britisher, to me that could ever happen. And I think it's what would happen if it came down to it, is that this alleged whatever, the person we're talking about could be found guilty of something, and that the person that was the president would say, you're pardoned. Because no, we don't lock up our former Secretary of States. That's third and our fourth in line. It goes president, vice president, speaker of the House, Secretary of State. That's fourth in line for president. So I don't think, we don't really, we shame them. We ruin their legacy. We call into question their daughter, Chelsea Clinton.
I prefer the English way, as we did with our monarchs. If our monarchs fucked up, sorry to swear, but if they messed up so much, they'd get their heads chopped off. And sorry, I think that if you're the leader of the state or leader of the country,
we only did that once, and it didn't work out too well.
Yeah, it'd be fine. But if you can't hold the leader of your own country to any sort of point or to any sort of level, then how can you expect the rest of the country to be upheld to any sort of level if you can't do it to the person who's supposed to be your reverend, so to speak?
Do what to him? I'm trying to say that if you're a leader like...
You say this, of course, but it's important in this case to point out, of course, that our head of state can't really be held accountable. The Queen could effectively shoot someone in public and there would be nothing anybody could do about it.
Yeah, but she's 70. She's over 90. It's fine. It's not a worry to her.
Well, you've had monarchs that have killed people. There's no accountability for your monarch.
Oh, yes, yeah, but what I mean is that was largely in the days of, you know, absolute monarchy. Whereas, of course, nowadays...
Well, but the law hasn't changed.
But as such, the problem with monarchy in this country is that if you look at the, you know, if you look at the... court cases in America, it's always the state versus Mr. Jones, you know.
There's the crown.
Whereas over here it's the crown, precisely. And who is the crown? Well, the monarch. So you cannot try a monarch by the crown. It can't be done. So
do it.
therefore, we all just have to hope that the monarch has a good incentive to behave well, because
Oh,
we
man.
don't really know what else we can do.
Can you imagine being royalty, though? By the time they get done with you, you're either bloody mad or you're this robotic. You do what you do because it's your duty. I can't even imagine. Some people think, oh, it'd be great to be the queen or the king. Oh, my gracious. That would
No,
be utter
as you
bloody
said,
hell.
Edgar, I disagree with that. I wouldn't want to definitely not be any sort of form of monarch. But I think, though I used the monarchy as an example, and I probably shouldn't have done, but it's an elected figure that's supposed to be the figurehead of the country. Now, if you can't do something to the figurehead of the country, as in if he does something wrong or she does something wrong, you can't do nothing to the figurehead, then why would you incarcerate or do anything to any of the normal people?
Well, listen, Ted Kennedy, man, at Chappaquiddick drove a car into a ditch, and the girl he was with died. They didn't find her until later. She had some dent marks in her head, and his 9-iron in his bag of clubs had human hair on it and blood. They didn't even bother testing the club or anything. He said he got out with it just an inch of his life, and he was so drunk he went home and passed out. That's Ted Kennedy. He was a senator for a long time. We have a long-standing history here of ignoring what our elected monarchy do. We really do. I'm not all for it. But
that's the case everywhere. That's the world over, because over here in Britain, 2 words: Tony Blair.
Oh, what a... Oh.
But people were trying to get him tried for war crimes. They just won't go to the courts, and the courts won't.
The bad thing is, he kowtowed to another country.
The person
he was
who
so horrible.
The person who was trying to get him tried was an Iraqi general.
Yes.
If I was in your country, I would hate Tony Blair so much, because it's beyond what... I mean, our people lied to us. He went over there and like buffaloed y'all into all this stuff. Based on what? On our intelligence. I think even at the time, your intelligence was saying they didn't have nothing to do with 9/11 and shit. What do you want to go to? Why do you want to? Because Saddam was a bad leader. We got other bad leaders. Why are you getting it? And there you went, man. Tony Blair was a disgrace to your country, man.
Worst post-war prime minister by a country mile. And I will have words with anybody who disagrees with that.
What do you mean? Because of like the things he said after he's been prime minister, right, Brett? Some of his quotes.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, he was just... I cannot really think of very much at all that would in any way be endearing in regards to any policy.
Zero contracts?
But who is the best post-war prime minister in each one of you's views?
Oh,
it's very, very difficult, because
but narrow it down and give me your best one.
Praising a politician is always a tough ask.
Oh, and it's painful. I know it's painful for you.
It's each one of the prime ministers would perhaps stand out. Has got other problems, if you know what I mean.
I don't care. What's your best one? What's your favorite one post-war after Winston?
Well, I mean, first off, I mean, Winston did become prime minister again, even though it was pretty much a prime ministership that didn't go.
Yeah, but that's why I say after Winston. I leave him out.
Then you would have kind of the very early Labour government after the war, which did a lot of organising and introduced things like the NHS and the modern welfare state over here, which no doubt deserved some praise. But again, if you look at it, if you look at the fine print, you realize, for example, that Winston Churchill saved it. So to what extent was it actually them who did it, and not Winston who basically secured the necessary finances for it to actually be possible? On the other hand, you've got someone like Margaret Thatcher, who is hated by a huge section of the population just simply for being so callous, but at the same time was more than likely a prime minister who was simply necessary, so that she was never popular during her entire time. I mean, she was always actually fairly disliked, but she was at least respected to a certain degree, and a large part of the country realized that whatever pain she was inflicting on the country was really necessary. At the same time, if you look at people like, say, Wilson or Heath, I mean, how do we know whether they were any good or not? Because the country by that time had become ungovernable.
Best one.
Sorry?
I said, yeah, I dig you, but you're killing me. What's the best, your best one? Because I want to get it from, I wanted to say best and worst, but now I'm not going to go there. And I'll tell you what I think was the best American president from war, post-war. So get down to it, Brett. I mean, I dig it. You could give us a long. I know. So tell me who it is. Is it Margaret Thatcher? Is it this other guy you're talking about? Who was the best post-war prime minister? I don't even want to know why.
More than likely, I would have to say, I would have to bite my tongue and more than likely say that it was more than likely the post-war government after the war. Was that Eden or was it Attlee? Common sense.
Oh, that's way before my time, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, it's way before all our times. But the first Labour prime minister after the Second World War is more than likely, if we rule out Winston Churchill, then chances are that might have been the most laudable one, so to speak.
I believe it was Attlee.
Attlee, okay.
I believe it was Attlee.
So what I mean is, the heart was in the right place, and he more than likely set up a system that worked in the long term. It seemed to also be embraced by the Conservatives, even though there was initial resistance to it. As such, much of it was then embraced as a common good, so to speak.
And it's Clement Attlee.
Yeah,
I believe is who you were looking for. Yeah, y'all have. I mean, I would never even have known that.
I might sort of opt for Attlee as best, and just Tony Blair as absolute worst. I mean,
there you go. All right, how about you? Common sense. I would say that was a pretty good pick too. I'll give you my best and worst also. American.
My best is from sheer respectability is Margaret Thatcher. I know a lot, as British has said, a lot of people disliked her. I wasn't actually alive when she was about, but at that point, I just think what she actually did and what she stood up, and the fact that she would not be bullied by anybody as well at that point with Argentina and so on and so forth. I can't fault her for her respectability on that side of things. My worst, believe it or not, is going to be Tony Blair.
Really?
Thank you.
That's okay. That's cool. I'm close to y'all on that one anyway, but I can't give you my best and worst on y'all's. Just quickly, if I had to, it'd be Margaret Thatcher would be the best and the worst would be David Cameron. But for the United States, I'd say the best would be JFK and the worst would probably be Richard Nixon. Maybe a toss-up Richard Nixon and Bush the first. But then again, Bush the first and second were almost tied. So I'd say there'd be your triad right there. Why did I want to do that? Because we could talk about borders and all this stuff all day long. And the British and I were so far off. Britt, the other day you said you didn't have a moral problem with executing people if they were going to be in prison forever because of the cost, but the revenge idea was off the table morally.
Yes.
I mean, I thought about that. I mean, we are so far different when we think of what is moral and what is not. Can't think of anybody that would be on the other side of the. I mean, then the idea of moral is an idea. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you're better than me. I'm not saying you're better than me. I'm not, or vice versa. But anyway, I thought that was a good segue to just. God, Brett, I should know. And I asked him.
Just ask one brief question. Just then we can, and you don't have to. I'm not asking for a massive soliloquy. Just give us an idea, as in. Why do you think Bush the first and Bush the second were pretty much as bad as one another?
Well, you had one that was a very totalitarian, straight up father was a Nazi sympathizer that really didn't think we should have borders or what's going on now with the Dreamers. They wanted that then. I'm talking about Bush the first. And was also an idiot. read my lips, no new taxes. And I mean, there's some things, everybody can't be Donald Trump. And he just didn't know that. And so he was not only a horrible person that destroyed, oh man, he did a lot of bad for the 8 years of good that was before him. And then his son, well, he was almost the opposite. Well, they're going to misunderestimate me again. And I tell you what, folks, you fooled me once and shame on you, and fooled me twice and, fooled me once, you can't get fooled again. That was planned. Anybody that doesn't think that he knows what the saying was and that he was a jolly jester that you would absolutely consider sitting next to at a football game, the stupid American style, if you're into that kind of thing, whatever, and talking about skinning a deer or something. So in the same ways, I mean, I think so. There you go. That's why they're the same. Again, I could go on for that forever. That they were the same, and that they were both horrible, but one was an idiot, and it didn't look like he was, and one wasn't, and it looked like he was. But they both had the same agenda. I mean, they both went skull and, I mean, they were the whole deal. You don't want to talk about that, I don't think, Brett. But when it comes down to it,
can I ask a quick question?
There is a cabal, yeah.
Why would you pick Kennedy over either Roosevelt or Reagan?
Because of his speech about us not liking secret oaths and secret handshakes.
You mean the reason why he got shot?
Yeah, that's what I think why he got killed, yeah. That he was about ready to probably destroy the cabal that is going on today, that Trump is not a part of. Whether or not he's trying to actively destroy it, I don't know. I'm not sure that Nixon was actively trying to destroy it.
Well, not to go too much into conspiracy theories, because I know that it's not a weekend, but the main reason why people think that Kennedy got shot was because he was going to change the money situation. He was going to change it from the federalized bank, so the IOUs back to a gold-based system.
Well, the funny thing is, the last president that was killed that way was also going back to that had the same proposals on the table, and that's Lincoln, the last one that was killed. Isn't that correct? I think so, if my history is correct.
Yeah, there was one in the middle. I think it was Campbell, or the person before Campbell, who stepped down, that was going to do exactly that, but then he got threatened, and then he stepped down, and then Campbell took over and then cancelled the policy.
Yeah, and we, again, so did y'all notice that I sent y'all some articles here. I've got a funny one after this, so I guess what I'll do is I'll put the common sense guy on the spot because he covered this in a video he did. But check this out just real quick. Fair use. What I want to say right now is the following video is used under fair use and is for the critique of the Britisher, common sense guy, and the ogre. And we don't want to be sued. So.
It was a violent confrontation. Hospital surveillance and police body camera videos, which may have been edited, show a Salt Lake City police officer arresting a nurse in July. Alex Wubbles says Detective Jeff Payne demanded a blood sample from her unconscious patient, a truck driver involved in a fiery crash with a car that was fleeing police.
This is something that you guys agreed to with this hospital.
Wubbles objects, citing hospital policy that a patient's blood cannot be drawn unless he or she gives consent, has a warrant out for his or her arrest, or is under arrest. Wubbles says she was detained for about 20 minutes and released uncharged. Detective Payne says he arrested Wubbles for interfering with an investigation, writing in a police report he needed the blood samples so that it could be determined if the patient had any chemical substances in his system at the time of the crash.
I was alarmed by what I saw.
The Salt Lake City Police Department has placed Payne and another officer on paid administrative leave pending a criminal investigation.
Well, I don't know about, I mean, I think I could play that all day long, but we see the gist of it. The problem that I have is you can't, if you've seen the whole thing, there's a lot more video. It shows that her supervisor was on the phone saying, look, there are what's called HIPAA laws. And as a patient, you have certain rights. This person was unconscious, no warrant. I don't know. So again, common sense guy, you did a lot more research on this than I did other than watching the video. My wife works at a hospital. My wife watched it before your video came out. We were both, I mean, she was livid. She was like, she not only believes that the police officer should be fired, but you're talking about kidnapping, false arrests, false imprisonments, assault and battery, the whole 9 yards. I mean, you're talking about 20-year felonies that this guy's got.
Yeah, no, you're completely utterly right. This gentleman, as I said in the video, I use as a loose term, but this gentleman arrested this nurse for literally pointing out, we have this agreement with the police force, your police force, South Lake City police force, saying that if somebody's unconscious and you can't do that, it's all part of human rights as well. We have the same aspects in this country, that if you're unconscious or anything else like that, you need to have a warrant to have your DNA done. You have to give consent. And it comes to the point where he just arrests her for actually doing her job. And it's just a case of, I understand that the bloke was trying to do things for his case, but you can't use the law in your own way. Now, let me just eloquate that a little bit better than just stating it the way that I did. He's forcibly arrested somebody by thinking that he has the power to do that. He hasn't got the power to forcibly arrest somebody for no reason. He gave the reason of trying to say that she was she was getting in the way of the investigation. When she wasn't, she was stating a policy that the hospital and the police force have come to have an understanding over. So he's forcibly imprisoned her. As Ogre said, you got the battery as well from forcibly imprisoning her in the car. And the fact that you know that nothing actually happened and there was no reason for him to arrest her was the fact that she got let go after 20 minutes of sitting in the car.
Well, and one also has to consider what it must be to try to coerce somebody to wrongfully steal someone's bodily fluids, to try to coerce somebody to perform an illegal surgical operation, i.e. place a needle in someone's body. I mean, I know that might sound nitpicky, but man, does anyone here want a needle placed in their body without them saying it's okay?
No, of course not. But you've got to look at even a bigger picture. It may be the case that you're saying about sticking a needle in somebody's arm and that, but she's not going to want to lose her job. The hospital's not going to want to be sued because that's what would happen, because obviously American culture is to do that. And then you've also got the situation of the police force then being sued for forcibly making somebody do something under duress.
It's funny because I didn't want to play on because of what you're talking about, because she's suing these bastards. She is going to sue them. She should do. Oh, she's going to my mind, mates, if she doesn't get, I would say this to me, in my humble mind, if I was a juror, she should receive $20 million. So it should be a $40 million lawsuit. Her lawyer get 20 and she get 20.
Americans.
Yep, that's the way it goes, Brett. We hit them where the pocketbook is.
You should get that much.
Can I ask one thing? Because I have heard something about this story, which, I mean, you know, you never know it is true, whether it's true enough, but it was mentioned there that there were 2 officers present. And from what I understand, the other officer was actually a superior officer.
Yeah, in his face, he should. Yeah, I'll let the common sense do, because I don't know that much about this case.
And I am led to believe that basically the other police officer at least states that he arrested her because he was told to arrest her by his superior officer. So, to my mind, that might change the shine on it somewhat regarding the copper.
I've done a little bit of research, obviously, for the video. I haven't seen anything to do with that. I've heard that being spoken,
and it sure doesn't look like that, does it? Common sense. It looks like this guy is acting autonomously.
No, but there's also I can't remember the name of the law, but when one officer is arresting for court purposes, they can only have one officer actually arresting, as in giving the legal bill of rights of saying you're under arrest, you have the right to remain silent, that spiel. They can only have one officer saying that. So the reason why, so if anything happens under the arrest, then that officer is at fault on that charge.
Because you notice she was only held for 20 minutes and released, so it's very possible that this is the overseer, so to say. But then once this guy pulled that shit, like the common sense is saying, he couldn't get involved because that's this guy's thing, and he is an officer. But afterwards, she was like, "Hey, this is messed up." If that's the case, this will be even worse for them because he should have stepped in right away and said, "Whoa, dude, let her go. You can't." And I've got the next story. Y'all will see why I've got the next story. I'm not trying to be white knights. I'm not picking this because it's a female. If this was a male nurse defending somebody's rights, unconscious in the next room, I'd be like, "Holy my Mary on a hopped up motor scooter."
Would you think the same if that lorry driver that was being protected was Mexican?
Yes. What are you shitting?
An illegal alien.
As long as illegal alien, no. In that case, no, Brett, because then
I'm just asking because that means that foreigner nonetheless has rights.
If he's a legal citizen of the United States, if he was an illegal alien, no, then he should have been able to get the blood.
But if he's a foreigner, so he's basically a legal alien, not an.
You know what, Verisher, kiss. You know what,
alien, he would nonetheless have rights.
You know what, Verisher, you can just. You know what, man. You can just take that and do whatever with it.
Yeah, morality is selective.
I see that I must have hit you earlier because you remembered it. Back like that. Very, very well done. Oh, but hey, look, I don't know what else we can even say about that. I would say in my heart that officer really needs to face some facts. And if that is his superior there, he probably needs to face a few facts too.
Yeah.
And what is it?
But please, for the love of God, not $20 million worth of facts.
Oh, yeah. Now that's 40, I would say. 40. 20 for her lawyer and 20 for her.
Good God.
It's always split in half for the victim. So I would say that's, man, did you see what they were doing? They cuffed her, dude. Okay, Brett, you're just doing your thing. You're making a video. You're there. Making a video, you're like doing the thing, and you're like just got and you're really working on the vocals, and all of a sudden the Bobbies kick your door in, drag you, handcuff you.
Count Dankula.
Right. Riding you out in the street, man. Frog walking you in front of all your neighbors. I mean, come on, man.
You don't think that Count Dankula is expecting $40 million anytime soon?
Well, no, but it's because you sissies don't know how to sue dumb some bitches right here. You got to sue.
True, that is true.
No, I shouldn't say it like that.
Well, yes,
we are a little litigious over here.
We look at it in this way over here, insofar that just because something wrong once happened to you doesn't mean that you should live the rest of your life as a multimillionaire.
Well, shit can mean that, yes. In this case, I think it should. I really do. I think it should. Look. How about this? If they lost 40 million but had to donate it to a charity for the blind, I don't care where it goes, but they need to be penalized where it hurts the most. And little, municipalities like this, where it hurts them the most is their wallet.
Yeah,
that's what they do to us. I mean, if you get in trouble over here, mate, the first thing they do is fine you. It's always $20,000 and 20 years in prison. Well, the 20 years in prison probably gets you like probation for a year, but you're gonna get the 20. The fines there.
No, I think I can see now why social justice is such a big thing in America.
What are you trying? Hey,
they're always interested in breaking each other's rice bowls.
Yep.
No, because now hold on now, no, and we do have a problem with litigiousness here. But we're not talking about breaking a rice bowl. Anything that this person got paid back would be from taxpayers. So I'm saying, as a taxpayer, if that happened in my district by my police chief, I think she should get paid, and the police force should have to suffer for that. Man, that's a horrible thing.
I'd like to say something like I did on the video. on this type of situation, when you've had this sort of forced imprisonment and the fact that this one
Maybe
single
40 million was high, but I'm just saying.
But you have this sort of situation at the moment where you have this one individual that's now being representative of the Salt Lake police station and police department. The thing is, like we would always say of anybody on the left, it is not the whole section. It's not the whole thing. It is this one person, this one individual that has gone and done this. Though he may be wearing... Exactly, hashtag not all. But on this instant, it does run fair because it's not a representative of the whole ideas of the force. This is just by one person. You can tell that by the fact that he was on his own. 9 times out of 10, I'm sure Ogre can attest to this. If you're being arrested and you have another officer next to you, 9 times out of 10, you can guarantee that that officer's pulling your legs out and you're on the floor. I'm sure he can attest to that afterwards. But that just goes to show you that the other officer knew that this was wrong, and this was all done on that officer's aspects. And that's the reason why she was let go. Because as Ogre probably interluded, that it was the fact that the other officer's probably gone off and said to him, "You're being a bit of a dick, let her out." And I think that's the problem, where a lot of people will now go, "Oh, it's the police department's fault." No, it's completely his fault, and he should take full responsibility for it, and he should either lose his job or at least lose his pension. As in, he shouldn't be allowed to have any sort of form of power. No, I'm sorry. If you're going to abuse power in that situation,
so is that
you
too
shouldn't.
much, Brett? So forget the 40 million. Is that too much to say the guy should be fired and not get any kind of pension or any kind of benefits?
If it is what we think it is, then maybe. And I think it also depends on what his history as a police officer has been.
I would agree with that.
I mean, if he's been a completely exemplary police officer until now, and he's been on the force 25 years, it would be hard.
He's done this stuff in the past,
but so I guess it depends on his history. But it also depends on if really what we see is what really happened. Do you understand what I mean? I mean, if it's
all on camera, man. Even her
well,
supervisor's
yes,
there.
But if he was ordered to do something, for example, that would change significantly the entire narrative.
Well, then whoever else is in, but all I can say
not
is
necessarily, not necessarily, because the only thing that changes is that he was ordered to do it. But the thing is, in the way that he did it was what the problem was. At the end of the day, the nurse in herself was only doing her job, and as a respected professional, he shouldn't be forcibly pulling her up against the wall and basically bending her over a bloody little stump thing to stop people ramming into the hospital to arrest her.
No, but I mean, seriously, let's look at it like this. I mean, if he basically were to have been told that he had to arrest her, then that would already take that out of the equation, wouldn't it? So then it would be a matter of is what he did reasonable? So could we effectively say that she was resisting arrest?
Not particularly, no. She was moving away, but she wasn't resisting.
She wasn't resisting unless she was saying, "Please don't do this."
Just asked, put your cuffs behind your back.
But he didn't say that. He said, "Right, that's it." Yep. He didn't say you're under arrest. He said, "Right, that's it," and then she started moving away.
At some point, it would be fairly clear that what he wanted to do is cuff her.
Yeah, he wanted to forcibly.
What we thereafter heard was a lot of noise from her. But we don't.
Well, but the British are just because I do okay, but we don't believe here that just because a police officer wants to arrest you, you have to submit. They're trying to press that right now, but as free people, we don't think that the
not submit to it, and he was under orders to arrest her. What exactly was he supposed to do?
Say no. Say you do it.
Okay.
He wouldn't lose his job for that. He wouldn't be lose his pension. If they wanted to fire him, he could get a job at another cop shop, But the way he did it, what he did, and I've watched the whole thing from front to back. If anybody gave him orders, it was through an earpiece, because he went on the phone. Her superior, and I'm about over this, and we all are. We really are, but because I don't want to. This is what I feel about this. I feel like I'm white knight. I wish it was a male nurse that this happened to. Because I don't care what it is. You can't say, "Do this illegal thing for me because I'm a police officer," and then when someone won't do it, arrest them. If you do that, that is a horrible crime. And since this person is in the business of arresting people for horrible crimes and putting them in prison for a long time, I think that they should be looking at doing some time for sure. And I think that the lady that was traumatized, if anybody hasn't been like cuffed and stuffed and doesn't want to say that it's worth some monetary, what do you think they should pay her, Brett, for false imprisonment like this, if anything? You think it should be nothing? And I'm sorry, or what?
Well, no, I don't think it necessarily would need to be nothing. But I mean, 20 minutes in a car and some handcuffs does not.
Well, so what should it be? You tell me, because I said 40 million. I just threw it right out there. What do you think it should be?
I mean, I think perhaps due to the entire, public matter of it all and whatever, perhaps a few thousand, but nothing more than that. I mean,
yeah, but that's still not a number. So a few thousand, like 60,000?
No. I mean, less than 10.
Less than 10?
Yeah.
So you think they should give her like $5,000 and say, we're sorry?
Yeah.
I would say, okay, you know what? If they would be in the habit of doing that, even on the chart, even on the times when this police agency does this, which is often, Britisher, often, and it's not public like this. If every time they did this stuff, they would give those people $5,000 and say sorry, I would be okay with it. But just like I'm saying with the DACA thing, if I'm not going to let British in here, well, so if no, in this case, well, whatever. I'm not going to even refute that, because it is crazy. Litigation is crazy, but this was a horrible deal. That's all I can say. Check this out, though. To prove that we're not white knights, I've got this queued up. And I've got y'all will be so stoked because I won't be able to say a bloody thing in a minute.
Woo! You're making chicken noises again, are you?
Yeah, about that. God dang! Hey! God.
That was a rather dramatic end, wasn't it? I mean, how about that, boys?
Basically, for the rest of the story, what was she on?
I don't know. When you look at how she looked in the back, it doesn't look like she was drunk, or I don't know.
Well, she must have been on something. I mean, I'm sorry, but you're already arrested. You're in handcuffs in a police car, and you decide, why don't I just take the police car for a ride? I mean, surely you must be inebriated in some way.
It was a 23-minute pursuit, Britisher. Speeds hitting 180 kilometers an hour.
100 miles per hour, yeah.
100 mile an hour. Yeah. 180 kilometers, yeah.
It's about 160, I think. 100 miles per hour would be about 160 kilometers an hour.
Oh, you're probably right. 0.6,
whatever. But yeah, I mean, to me, it just strikes me as she must have been high on something. When it comes to the one thing I would like to hear, of course, the one thing I would really love to hear would be the message from the police who just had their car nicked back to police headquarters.
By this lady right here, Britt. Check her out, man. I mean,
basically,
I'm with you. She's probably a meth head.
Excuse me, could someone please send us a car? And you just basically, it would just be this wonderful conversation. You would just love to hear it. Could someone please send us a car? Why? You've got one of your own. About that.
Yeah, and guess what, Brett? I'm looking. It doesn't. I'm trying to find out what she was on, but it says she remained in jail on an $18,000 bond Tuesday night, charged with 5 felony counts of escape with threat of a deadly weapon, aggravated assault, unauthorized use of a vehicle, possession of a controlled substance. That's the one, Brett. Right?
Yeah, there we are. Possession of a controlled substance. So there you
and
go. Yes.
evading arrest. So yeah, she's been a bad girl.
She's yes, she's in a little bit of trouble. I think we can surmise from that. But
She's been a bad girl. So I guess my question to you boys is, and that's why I pulled this up right after we talk about the the nurse, and I said what I think should whatever. I mean, what about this lady? What should happen to her? Is this okay? Is she just a wild, crazy girl? Should it be like what should happen here?
Well, if you don't mind me going first and giving my opinion, to me, she's basically had two different separate cases that should be brought against her. She's got one case of the reason why she was stopped and arrested, as in I'm assuming for a controlled substance or possession of a controlled substance, and then she's got a whole separate case of after being arrested, nicking a police vehicle and driving around like an idiot and doing that. I mean, to me, I think that she should probably go away for a while. She's not what you would say sane. She definitely needs some sort of help. Whether it be
this is not a slap on the wrist situation. I mean,
no, definitely not. No, definitely not. Though I would like to make a quick point. I thought police officers always tell you when you stop your vehicle to take your keys out of the ignition.
Yeah, right.
Well, there may be some sort of deal that's possible if the judge has got a sense of humor, as if to sort of say, well, look, I'm not going to send her away for a long time. If the police can show that they are going to do some kind of retraining procedures for their staff. But no, that one, I don't know. One can't but just joke at it because it is so ridiculous. I mean, it's fairly obvious that here is somebody who will need to go to prison for a while just to have a bit of thinking time.
Just a little bit.
Yes. I mean, just the sheer, no matter what the original reason was for the arrest, just the sheer amount of public danger this woman represented while she was careering through the countryside at 100 miles an hour. Because, I mean, this was a substantial truck.
Yeah.
And imagine there would have been some little Toyota coming the other way or whatever, and it would have collided with this
grandma on the sidewalk. She spun out of control, went right off the road.
Yeah.
Granny is walking the family dog down the side of the road.
She wasn't that far off becoming a Las Ramblas moment.
Right. No.
So in that regard, yes, definitely here is somebody who needs to go to prison for a bit.
You morons better know.
Yes, more than likely, this was entirely down to being intoxicated.
Well, yeah, I tell you what. And look, I don't know. We're getting close to 2 hours now, so I'm just gonna, without pressing you boys to bullshit all day. So the longer I chill out, the less work I got to do. I did notice something else that happened today. I think we're all in agreement too. That's what I wanted to do. And I just threw that in there as something funny. And also it was a way to show that as much as, because even you, Brett, I mean, you were on the way less in than I was, but you were saying, hey man, they should say they're sorry and give her some cash.
Oh.
But this lady, no, we all said the same thing. It's not gender. It had nothing to do with white knighting. Because when the shoe's on the other foot, I think we all agreed she'd need a little time out. Maybe take 5 years out, spend 5 Christmases in prison, and then 5. But I'd seen this in the Daily Mail. Isn't this a British publication? I know I pass it every time.
This is a British, definitely right of center publication.
Very, very reputable publication.
No, as I say, definitely right of center. They know how to throw their weight about in politics.
Extremely reputable, though. Very, very trustworthy. Am I not?
No, I would say there are on that end of the publication where they
Okay,
will
well,
out and
regardless of that,
out,
I'll argue with that.
they will not out and out make stuff up, but at the same
Because
time they will
think
bend
this guy
it.
maybe sawed his penis off.
Ow. That's just what I just can't think of any other word.
So you think maybe they didn't make this one up? Do you think maybe this guy sawed his penis off?
I
Well,
think
it says it's an accident.
I think if they're basically putting the headline up that somebody by accident sawed his penis off, then more than likely he did that.
So here we go. Police and air ambulance were called to Gloucester Village.
Gloucester.
Whatever. Gloucester. Yeah, Gloucester. That's how we say it here. Yeah, Gloucester.
Ignore the U.
Did I say it right the last time? Gloucester.
No.
Ignore the U. Gloucester.
Gloucester.
Yeah, that's it.
Gloucester. Okay, that would take a lot of getting used to.
It's named after the cheese.
Yes.
We have some Gloucestermen here. I mean, anyway. So these people at this village after accident, but so the man was rushed to hospital reportedly after. This is kind of weird too. They said reportedly after reportedly. I don't know why, but I would have said a man was rushed to hospital after reportedly sawing his penis off.
Yeah, they don't seem to check their work nowadays. I've noticed that a lot in publications, especially on the internet. They don't seem to check their grammar anymore. There's a lot of mistakes.
That's the only reason this story made it, man, is because it says penis. And then
the only in that case, of course, the most famous newspaper regarding grammar and whatever was The Guardian. These days, it's not so evident anymore because of spell check.
Yes.
But The Guardian was always famous for having more spelling errors in it than any other newspaper, which is why other members of the press always refer to it as the Groniad.
It's a Groniad.
See, when you first started off that little statement, I thought you were going to say the BBC Pigeon.
Well, here's the fact. I guess this is where this guy is. A man is being treated at Bristol's South Meds Hospital after reportedly sawing. I can't say without laughing. I tried before we did this, but after reportedly sawing into his penis. Look,
can I ask something? Just on a purely intellectual basis, of course.
Okay, all right.
Does this make him an involuntary transsexual?
Hey,
I want to lower the tone.
Him.
I want to lower the tone even more. If he accidentally started to saw into his penis, did it have to be like wood for him to be able to saw it, or was it like fish?
Oh yeah, this did exactly what I hoped it would do. So apparently this guy in his workaday week, he has done something that we don't want to even think about. I would question the whole aspect, Brett. You kind of beat me to the punch, because I think that any sane male, when they think of this headline, workers' penis is sawn off, I have to laugh because it's like my legs are crunching together and oh man. So no sane human being that's a male would want to saw their penis off. I hope that we keep on questioning that as life goes on, man. I really do. That we won't just say, they took it out of the DSM last week. So body dysmorphic, disfigure, it's body dysmorphia, gender dysmorphia. I guess this is. I think a body dysmorphic disease, body dysmorphic. Oh shit! Now I can't even think of the last word. I tried to say it like 5 times. Where you look in the mirror and you see yourself as really fat when you're really skinny, or really skinny when you're really fat, something like that. I mean,
you're
that's
thinking of gender dysmorphia.
Well, no, I got that right, gender dysmorphia, but that just got taken out of the DSM. So I'm saying, what's next? Body dysmorphic disorder. That's it, too. Body dysmorphic disorder. Is that next, where you don't see yourself as what you are? Because that's basically what gender dysphoria is. It's the same thing. You look and you see a male there, but you want to be a female so bad, or whatever it is, a glitch in your mind. So
Well,
it is natural for us not to want to think of people getting their penises sawn off. That was it.
If you want to move on from that, there is a story that I've put into the a story. It's something that happened on Twitter yesterday. That I just think that the ogre may perhaps have something to say about it, because he is actually close friends with this particular person, and therefore I was just wondering whether he had something to say about it.
Close friends. With James Woods, not close friends, but so what? Maybe I'm just to me, James Woods comes across as utterly reprehensible prick. Well, yeah, he is a prick.
This is from T.J. Kirk.
Yeah.
This is the amazing atheist.
I mean, yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
I don't. I've never heard of him.
Well, I would say that he's going to get insta-blocked if he goes. I'm surprised he hasn't already.
I actually voiced my disagreement. Sorry?
What's he saying so wrong? I mean, the amazing atheist is such a lefty prig. You know,
he did really far left.
Well, I'm not sure he's far left, but he's.
Are you? Oh,
he clearly
man.
has Democrat views, doesn't he?
He's a commie.
He's basically a commie. He's just literally on teetering on the edge. He's the Alex. He's the commie Alex Jones. Literally, that's what T.J. Kirk is. He's the commie version of Alex Jones.
It is.
Hey, look, I can't. If the way you got famous is pushing a banana up your
never
fanny,
heard him say anything communist.
Well, I tell you what, if the way you got famous is pushing a banana up your hiney, I can't respect you.
Yeah, yeah. Did he freeze it first, or?
I don't know, man. I just know it's out there to view. He pushed a banana up his
common
fanny.
sense to want to know the technicalities.
Yeah,
I want to be educated.
just so he knows that whether it's replicable or not.
So this is talking. So this tweet, as I'm trying to catch up with what this even means, this is talking about the DACA thing, right? He's like, brought by parents. So no choice coming now, they'll be sent to countries where they're never known. Cruel, not American. I mean, I'm telling you, folks, this is not a freaking.
So James Wood's response to that was, "It's done. Go play checkers."
Yep, I know, and I'm with him.
It was then, that we got the reaction from T.J. Kirk.
Because there's no way, man. I'm with. Yeah, I'm totally with James on this, and not because he follows me on Twitter. I'm just
very close friends.
Yep.
But I think I can show you that. I don't know. He probably didn't pin that. Oh, look, SoFane follows TJ Kirk. In fact, look at all these people I know that follow him.
I follow TJ Kirk.
You daggone.
Well, I mean,
cool.
my obvious communist inclinations, I would have to follow TJ Kirk.
Fat Pat. It doesn't show you there, Brett, but I guess it's 49 followers I know follow this dude. I do not. You can see I do not follow this guy. And it's not because he's an atheist. I don't think any of my cyber friends are Christian in any way, shape, or form. I'm almost positive they're not. It's not the way it is.
Well, I'm agnostic.
We'll take your word for it. Yes,
agnostic. That just means that you would like more evidence. Basically, you don't have enough evidence to say one way or the other. That's agnostic is cool. I guess I'm just a deist. Yeah, and you know what, boys? I don't know. It's getting close. We're nigh on 2 hours, folks. Can you believe how time flies when you're having fun?
Who's having fun?
I have been. I've loved this everything that today has been a good day for me because of the stories that I pulled up. There were some. I mean, I haven't even touched on this. The idea that mankind is at a tipping point.
Effectively, what this proves is that for the ogre to have a good day, some poor chap in Gloucester needs to have a bad one.
cut his bloody John Thomas off. Oh man. The whole gender thing did come. That's all that came to mind. We just talked so long about other things that I don't know. I mean, how long are we going to say that you got to be crazy if you want to sew your vagina up and have them sew on a rubber dingus? And vice versa. I mean, if you want to saw off your
To be fair though, it proves that all you need to do if you're transgender is, I'm not endorsing this, so please don't endorse this. But all you need to do is go to any sort of form of building site or wood workshop and just go, can you just chop this off for me? And you don't even have to pay anything.
This bloke did it on his own. He was getting paid for it. Apparently, he was at work when it happened. So he was being reimbursed for the trouble. Oh, and no, that's not. But it was funny, right? I thought it was a good time to slip that in. I don't know. Slip it in, get it. Another pun, just another pun. Another penis pun. I guess this guy's not going to have a very hard time.
Yeah, after the first one, it just gets boring. I go, move on.
His life will become very flaccid. I got some more.
I think you're sort of competing with Tim Vine now, aren't you?
Oh, I'm not sure that is what. Who?
Tim Vine is a pun artist. I think he holds the record for most puns in the shortest amount of time.
Oh my! I wouldn't try that, but I do love a pun.
He's actually related to he's a brother of Jeremy Vine, who is a BBC Newsnight presenter.
Well, tell you what, boys, I had a couple more things popped up here, but I do have work to do, and I know y'all do too. Brett, oh, that reminds me, we're almost done. Are you going to do something tomorrow?
Actually, yes. Tomorrow I am going to be on stream with the academic agent. That will be on his channel. And we are going to do a Tory top trumps, whereby we are going to treat the possible leadership candidates for the Conservative Party, of which, of course, Theresa May, who is the current Prime Minister, will be one. And we'll effectively treat them as top trumps cards, but basically seeing who has got the best stats in order to kind of try and ascertain for whom really are the odds the best in becoming the next Conservative leader and thereby the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So yes, it's going to be more of an analytical thing, but then it is the academic agent. So we won't be talking about sawn off penises.
No, well, what are you trying to say, Brett? I got to keep it light. We got heavy today, man. You and I were like at each other's throats. We can't. To me, I was watching.
No, we weren't. You were just simply wrong as usual. But
as always, your perception is very, very skewed, sir. But we will see. But you know what? I was watching big time wrestling today. In fact, I wasn't watching it. The work I was doing, I couldn't watch it. I was listening to it, and the announcers, the whole deal. There's a lot to learn from them people. They really know how to put on a show. And that's all I want to do for this. Is we talked about some heavy stuff, man. I knew it would cause discussion. And then, so what are you going to do? I mean, what's better than somebody? I mean, I even had the, but I'm not going to go there. In fact, boys, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lean on y'all right now and say that for me, it's been a hell of a week. Just been a couple things on my mind, and I'm going to get one of them out at the very end here, which to me it is. It's like the Britisher said, and I've found this for the algorithms. They seem to like 2 hours. People seem to like 2 hours. I seem to like 2 hours. If it goes for 3, 4, or 5 hours every time, man, it starts to get to be like a job that you don't want to do, and I don't want that. And yeah, I know that Britt would just come back like this Monday, and I think we went for 3 hours. Well, I mean, Britisher hadn't said boo to all y'all in like 2 weeks, a week, it's a little bit of time. So we had a little wind built up, of course. I mean, like it's what happens sometimes. But make sure you go by and check him out. If you're not subscribed to the Britishers, you wouldn't be here. So, hey, boys, is there anything on your minds? I don't know. I try to be so stupid because I don't want to be eloquent at the end, but then it's like, I don't know. Sometimes you realize people are watching you, and it's like, would you feel like you're playing a character? So what's on your mind, common sense? And then we'll get the hell out of here.
I suppose the only thing that I can say is from today that I've learned that if you do any sort of, I say opinion pieces, but it's not. You've done your research. You've come to a conclusion from the research, and you're going to stick to your gun, so to speak. if you ever do something to the point where you've done your research, you know that you're right, as in you've done the research properly. I don't mean half-heartedly, you've done it properly. And you know that you're right, and you post something out there in the big wide world, and you get people that comment on you. Don't be afraid to comment back. Don't be afraid to be able to prove your points, to have that discussion with people. Even if it seems that the people are not completely understanding what you're actually trying to say, even to the point where sometimes you're speaking two completely different languages, or seems to. But just keep on going at it. If in that discussion, though, for whatever reason or for whatever happens, you do seem to change your mind, for instance, because you've found something that you didn't research before as well, don't be afraid to change your mind and actually look at the information that's in front of you and think to yourself, well, no, that's not right. Because nobody likes somebody that literally sticks to their guns that doesn't know what they're actually talking about. At the end of the day, we can only make decisions on the information that we have in front of us. Now, if that information changes, do not be afraid in the future to change your point of view, if it does change. Because that's the sign of a man, or that's the sign of somebody who's actually intelligent. To realize that information changes, to realize that the point, that information and knowledge is a bit like water. At some point it flows in a straight line. Sometimes it flows completely down, and sometimes it just doesn't move. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, don't be afraid that if your ideals change, to express why they've changed, to carry on talking about it, to keep your ideas in the open. Because as I've always said, you will never get better, you will never learn anything if you don't challenge yourself and challenge your ideas. And that's the way that we move forward as British has saved me. Go.
Well, in that regard, I would like to sort of almost like a Lego brick snap right into that, because at one moment, yes, we need to challenge our ideas and whatever, but at the same time, we also have to be careful that we don't just change for the sake of changing. And I know that makes me very much sound like some terribly conservative person, or of course like a politician who is currently the incumbent, and just basically that's one of the slogans they always use, isn't it? Not change just for the sake of change. But what I'm sort of seeing is when we see these social justice topics that get, you know, picked up, in some cases one seems to be driving change just for the sake of it. So I saw a story this week, it's just the last 1 or 2 days it came up, that Christian Dior and Gucci are now going to drop super skinny models. And you sort of think, well, how did this come about? And of course, we know that for years now there has been some sort of campaign going on against skinny models, against models being too thin. And you think, well, at one moment they're sort of trying to say that society should become more permissive about overweight women, but at the same time they're actually trying to rule out skinny women. Now, it seems to be sort of almost related to that same thing that we sort of see that Jordan Peterson highlighted when he was talking about the gender pronouns, that he said one thing is basically, you know, having political correctness, telling you not to say nasty things. The next one is trying to enforce you to say the right thing. So in that moment, you're actually putting words into someone's mouth. And in that way, I think the super skinny models thing is, in that regard, something familiar. It more than likely comes from exactly the same source, you know, this social justice drive. But again, now it is no longer a matter of, you know, don't be nasty to fat people, don't fat shame. Now it's a matter of, you are not allowed to be thin if you're a model. And to my mind, that sort of shows a kind of autocratic sense, you know, something that it seems to be inherent to the entire movement. that in the end it always ends up with sort of commands, thou shalt not be. I mean, there was another article that was about, once again, about Tracer, you know, this character in, is it in Blizzard, a computer game? And she made headlines, I think a year or so ago, that her bottom was too pronounced. And once again, you know, the feminists and the social justice crowd went absolutely berserk about it. And it's again made headlines, and Brianna Wu, who everyone of course loves, is once again in on it, and she apparently has managed to download the actual drawings underlining that particular character, and she has gone as far as examining how deep this character's butt cleft is, in order to ascertain whether her bottom is therefore too plump because of anatomical reasons, and has come to the conclusion that this is an anatomically impossible butt cleft, and therefore is not possible in normal humans, and therefore it should be outruled from being a kind of character in computer games. The fact, of course, that the males are all much too heavily set and muscular, far beyond actually the actual normal range of a normal male human being, that never appears on her radar. But it kind of shows how pedantic and how far these people will go in their obsession. And it will always end up with the same prescription, and that is that this must be banned, this must stop. Thin people can't be models. Women with fictional women in computer games with too attractive a butt can't be in computer games. And you just sort of think that there is something inherent to it. And as someone who's had, you know, been ding-donging for years and years about censorship, I recognize it from the off. It is Puritanism, plain and simple. That we have got Puritans actually masquerading as people interested in social justice or in feminism, whereas in fact, they despise fun. They despise other people having fun, more than likely because they have got some sort of psychological inability themselves to have fun. And as they can therefore not understand it, they seek to control it by stopping others from having it. So anyway, I think I've rambled enough. I will hand over to the yoga.
Oh man, it was beautifully put. I thought I had a second or two left, but that's okay. What'll happen is you'll just hear me take a large inhale on my vaporizer before I start with my final word, which doesn't really tie in a whole lot. The funny thing is the story that you mentioned that got you on that wonderful little soliloquy there was, I was on today's docket, and I kind of chopped off the whole, they're taking out zero size models. And the funny thing is for me, before I just jump off, is that there's a reason they have zero size models. Nothing to do with attraction. Males are not attracted to zero size models. It has to do with the clothes just hang off of them as if they were clothes hangers. That is, honest to goodness, the reason they want these slim models. So what you're doing is you're taking away a medium from an artist. It would be, I mean, look at it how you want, but it wouldn't be much different than taking stone away from, you know, Michelangelo, because you're taking away the medium, and you're saying you have to do this. What are they going to do? They will start inventing clothes that are so huge for fat girls because they're going to have these. So anyway, what I want to say on my own, because all this impresses me, I'm very fortunate to have you two gentlemen with me on a good day. Like hopefully I'll be able to bring up the tail end, and it will continue to be a good day. We really have some good thoughts, not only throughout the day as we already have, But at the end of the day, when we get to say, you know, our thing and talk about whatever it is that pleases us. So as I get my sinuses together here, end of the summer for me. And this isn't necessarily a continuation of the rant that I did on Monday. In fact, it's not. Something completely different. Something about patience. Because isn't what we all want what is right over the rainbow, what is right next door? The grass is greener on the other side of the fence. We want the toy the other kid has. That car's better than mine. I want a bigger house. My house, you know, all these things. And it's the same way with the seasons of the year. For me, I'm not a summer boy. There's benefits of summer. The Britisher was pointing it out to me earlier today before we even got on air about how, well, you do love the things to grow and you're getting the, yes, I get a lot more of it in the harvest, which is now in the fall, but it's technically the end of summer. Yes, there's good things about summer, but I don't like all the pollen, all the stuff in the air. The thing of it is what's better about the next? It's all a perspective without going into how I feel about every season. It's all a perspective, not just myself loving the winter and the deep freeze when everyone's gone from this wasteland I live in for that 2-month period where the temperature rarely gets out of the teens in the Fahrenheit and is usually around the 0 mark. At that time when everyone is gone, you have your thoughts, you have yourself, you have endless time to do videos. A lot of people will be like, oh, where's your videos? Where's your videos? And if you look at my older catalog, there's tons of them in the winter, but I had that time. But it's patience. It's not me waiting, and it shouldn't be. I don't think it should be me. What it is for you and what you do in life is up to you. But it shouldn't be me waiting for the winter time or waiting for my dog to come out of heat so she quitted being, you know, she just look at her. She'll ruin the whole thing. She's nuts right now. She's nuts. She's in heat. It's about patience. Not only patience. Patience is the art of being okay with where you're at in the moment. Because we all desire change. We all want something different. That difference could come, that change could come at who knows when. Patience comes with being happy with where we're at right now. And I tell you what, man, in my mind, I'm thinking about North Korea and this whole, you know, apparently they got a nuclear weapon. I'm listening to the Britisher in the week that was, I swear he was like, well, now they get to negotiate from a completely different, you know, and all these other voices are coming. And I don't know. And that's just one aspect of the whole week. But to find sanity in all this stuff, I got to have patience and know that the change that will come in life is going to come, whether I like it or not. It could be that this is the decade of social justice warriors. And that the next decade will be something completely different. And it will go back to life as usual. Some racist, some not, but it's not this Antifa kind of crazy movements that we've been seeing lately. Well, and listen, if I let this go on and on and on, it will be so rambling, no one will understand a bloody word I say. Because there's been a lot on my mind. And what keeps coming back to it is this is patience. I'm so glad the fall is here. I'm so glad that the rains have come back to central Michigan. And that pretty soon the sleet's going to come, and then all the summer folks are gone. This was their last weekend. I was watching our little road out here that the door's open. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know if you can hear that traffic going by, but there's a little road out here, and there's still people just going by pretty regular. About let's see, Monday night, it looked like a major highway. Tuesday morning, I ran this like, man, I was sitting in my front, looking up front yard. It was unbelievable. So they're all gone. But patience is what gets us through, folks. And I'm telling you, man, I would ramble because now my time is here, but it'll be gone again. And if I don't content myself with what's happening in the moment, if I don't find patience, if I'm not content with what's going on, life will seem a very, very long song. So listen, I was going to touch on a couple other things, but like I said, hey, Britisher, thanks for coming by tonight, man. Today, common sense guy. Thank you. Not that I want a lot of response. I want to point out that it's a lot easier to have a good time with good people around. And for myself, man, there's been a lot of people that have come and gone on the weekends, on the regular show. But you two boys, especially you, Britt, but both you boys have been second to that. Be good to your friends. Be good to your family members. Listen, folks, be good to your loved ones. Try to be patient. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge, you'll never be able to forget about it. Because listen, constant viewer, at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life and your cause, and maybe your next fall will depart from you. Ha ha!